Welcome everyone to the Game Disc Podcast, where every week we discuss a specific game, brand new, retro, or anything in between, and figure out if it's worth putting on our top 100 games of all time. I'm your host, Simon Esty, and I am joined tonight by my co-host,
Noah Esty.
And on today's episode, we're going to talk about the video game industry falling apart. Everything about the industry. It's all falling apart. And then, during our weekly games discussion, we decide if Luigi's Mansion is one of the top 100 games of all time, or if the titular plumber continues to live in the shadow of his older brother. We will figure all that out. But first, Noah, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. I'm recording live from Nagoya, Japan, more specifically on my toilet seat, as I'm actually very sick today.
Oh, God.
Now, kidding aside, I have been sick a lot. I've been sick all this week, and today it's one of those things where it's like I'm not 100% like ready, but I definitely am on, like, if I get enough sleep tomorrow, gonna be completely healthy, or take a good nap today, I will be. So yeah, overall can't really complain too much about it. Well, what about you, Simon?
Yeah, I'm actually flying to Seattle tomorrow to visit my fiance. So it was like a very last minute trip. So getting that all kind of sorted out was pretty stressful, but I wanted to make sure we got another episode in because we're still kind of early on, and I didn't want to just do like two and then take a week off. So I was like, well, let's just crank one of these out.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, after two podcasts, you worked pretty hard. You deserved a break.
Oh yeah, to be fair, definitely more difficult than I thought. Mostly just software troubles, but also just little time during the week setting things up, thinking about what we're going to talk about, all that fun stuff. But we're here. I'm happy to be doing it. I think the first two episodes, my mic quality was really bad, and it's because I didn't realize my gain on my microphone was set super high. So I think that's why the sound quality was not great. Hopefully this one's a little bit better, and if it's not, I apologize, and I'll keep working on it. I also apologize for any weird sounds you might hear, because of course, as soon as we started recording, my dog has decided that now is the time that we should play. So if you hear weird rustling, that's my dog trying to get me to throw a ball, which I'm kind of doing. But that's all not important. Let's just get right into the news of the week.
You got to make sure that she starts playing video games instead of ball. Then you can have her as a special guest on the podcast.
Yeah,
like,
that'd be
Bailey,
a good idea.
How are you doing this week? Boom.
Yeah, that was Bailey, not you.
Oh, yep, she's a good girl.
But yeah, I got my Mega Man G Fuel. Not the caffeinated one. I'm not.
Yep.
Not
sponsored, by the way.
Not sponsored, but hopefully one day. My plan is to just, if I talk about it every week, then I can just go to them and say, "Hey, I've been talking about you guys for like a year, and I haven't gotten paid." And and then hopefully we'll just be like, "Oh, we're sorry about that. Here you go." But we'll see. Yeah. So if you hear that, that's all it is. It's just me. It's just me shaking up the G Fuel.
Yeah.
But let's get right into the news. It was a big week, kind of a continuation of last week. To be honest, where we got some bad news last week, and that bad news kind of continued into this week as well. But first, kind of some news that is a relief. Microsoft is hoping to wrap up the Activision deal by the end of next week. That would be October 13th. This purchase has gone on for so long. I cannot wait for it to wrap up. The FTC did say they were going to try to like stop it again, but they can't do anything before the deadline, which is good because that's going to make it so much harder. Like, I just want this thing to go through. I mean, I personally am fine with this buyout. Like, I know a lot of people are saying like consolidation is bad, and it is, but at the same time, like, what's Activision doing? Activision is just slowly falling apart. Like, they're making less and less games and more Call of Duty. They're having trouble keeping up with that. I'm fine with, like, I don't know. Yeah, there's a chance Microsoft is going to be just as bad, but my hope is that at least like they'll remaster like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 to toss on Game Pass, or remaster like Hexen or whatever. Like, I think Microsoft might take advantage of some of those titles just to toss on Game Pass, which is better than Activision, which keeps them like buried underground to use as fuel for the COD machine.
And it's like, I mean, on the other hand, like, I understand that I agree with a lot of things that it is, of course, consolidation is bad, and the big thing is that we're worried about is a monopoly. But at the same time, I think the big problem is the big damage argument that really damaged that is the fact that the CEO of Sony like straight up said, "Yeah, this really isn't like a big deal. It's not really going to affect us too much," and that Nintendo is still the dominant console at this point. I think it's something that is just it it's something that I feel like a lot of people are just kind of like, okay, what else is there to talk about? It's just been such a long, like arduous journey. Like it's a thing that's going to happen now. It seems like let's just get it over with.
Yeah. Nope. That's exactly how I feel too.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to say. Hopefully, come next Saturday, this will be done and we
Although,
can stop talking about it. But
how ironic would that be though if because like Microsoft the big game they had this year was what's it called? Redfall, which was
that was not the
quite a
big
mess.
game they had this
That
year.
well, that was,
That was
and
like
I
the
don't
third biggest game they
imagine
had this year.
how ironic that would be if the deal goes through and all of their games end up being like Redfall, so it actually leads to like the destruction of like Activision and Microsoft.
I
Uh,
mean, I guess that's possible. I
what
think
man?
I don't know. I don't.
I mean, Blizzard hasn't been so hot lately either.
Blizzard's been they haven't they've been fine. Like Diablo
Overwatch is
4 was
Overwatch 2 is the most negatively reviewed game on Steam.
well, okay, but that's probably mostly review bombing. I find it over. I'm not the biggest Overwatch fan. Overwatch 2 is not the worst game on Steam. It's
Yeah, I
just
mean,
not.
it
It's
ain't no
not.
bad rats, but I mean,
It's
it's
fine. Blizzard Activision, the Blizzard part is not as good as it used to be. It's fine. Like, I'm disappointed in Overwatch. Diablo 4 was kind of
Mhm,
fun, but whatever. They'll be fine, like I said. But and Activision doesn't even make any new games
mhm,
except for Call of Duty, so I don't
mhm,
I don't see things getting any worse under Activision. A worst
mhm.
case scenario, they stay the same. But
Yeah.
speaking of companies who aren't doing as well as they once were, um, former BioWare employees are suing BioWare
Mhm,
for their claim is that the BioWare is denying them full severance.
mhm,
So essentially, what they were offered is 2 weeks of severance per year. So these employees were laid off.
mhm,
They were offered 2 weeks per year
mhm.
of additional
Work.
pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 weeks per every year they worked, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know why
Mhm.
I like my brain wasn't thinking about the right
No,
way to
it's
phrase that.
okay. It's a pretty standard severance package deal.
Yeah. So apparently previously BioWare used to do a month. So these employees who I think their average, if you there were 7 of them, if you average out their like tenure, it was like 14 years. So these were employees who'd been there a long time.
Mhm,
Um, uh, Previously, employees would get a month. So they're saying we're
mhm.
not getting a month anymore. We're only getting 2 weeks. That's not right. We deserve full
Yeah.
severance like other people got.
Mhm,
Which I don't know how this works. To me,
mhm,
um, I don't know because like I don't know if they have I don't know if that's like a thing. I just don't know. I mean I hope
mhm.
they do. Like obviously it
Yeah.
sucks that they were laid off, especially like could you imagine you dedicate 14 years of your life to a company and then one day they're just like sorry, we don't have money anymore cuz interest rates are high. So and we fucked up when we made Anthem and so
Mhm,
now bye. Like I don't I hope that they get it, but I just don't know. Severance isn't a right, so I don't know if I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing that they're suing and that they have like a lawyer attached to it that they must think they have a case, but I've just never heard of you suing. I've never heard of anybody suing for basically
yeah.
not enough severance. But
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing is it's really going to boil down to, in my opinion, my unexpertise opinion, I might add. I
oh,
think
you
it's
went to
going to
law
boil.
school?
Yeah, I did go to law
Oh
school,
no, no, you
but
didn't.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry. You just watched Daredevil.
No. I did in fact go to law school. I got kicked out of law school because I wasn't a student there,
No,
but I did go to a law
yeah,
school.
you went to law school, but you you learned Japanese studies instead. Like they also had a law degree. I just didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and like I said, I wasn't a student there. I just went there. I just sat
Yeah,
in the
they had a
classes for
really good cafeteria.
dude, that cafeteria was the bomb. They had these nachos that like I've not found a restaurant with as good of nachos as this law school
As the law school
cafeteria
cafeteria. What
at
was it to say?
at Law School University.
Law, yeah, of course.
Good old
LS,
LSU.
yeah, LSU. I think
Yeah.
there is a LSU.
Yeah, of course there is. It's Law School University.
Oh
I went
yeah,
there for 3 weeks.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And, their mascot is that
okay. No,
lawyer
I
who
thought you were.
shot
I thought you were gonna.
himself who
I thought you were
shot
gonna go
himself to
back to
defend
your
his
original
client.
whatever you were talking about Bioware. We're
Okay.
moving on.
All
I'm
right.
cutting you off. What were you gonna say about Bioware?
Um
Bioware needs to be in your next sentence.
yeah, okay. So I don't think any BioWare employees went to
All right. Well,
LSU.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Okay. Yeah. So all right, going back to it. Um I think it's going to boil down to, is this mentioned in their contract? And if so, how many people have copies of their contracts? Because
Yeah, I
I
guess
think
that's true.
that,
I didn't think about it. That they signed.
yeah,
Yeah.
if, I mean, it's not unusual for like most contracts, like have things like that to say, like in the case of a
I don't.
termination, this is what it
Yeah, I don't
is.
know. You might be
Um,
right. Maybe it does. I've never had a contract that stated like all of them have just said at will and they could let me go whenever. So I've always assumed if I got laid off from my job, they would just
mhm,
be like, huh, sucks to suck.
yeah.
That's why I keep like a little bit of vacation time. I keep like a month of vacation time on my because that they legally have to pay out. So I have a month of vacation time, and I'm like, I don't like dropping below that because if I get laid off, I want at least some time to try to find another job. But
Yeah.
whatever, that's not important. That's not what we're talking about.
No,
But yeah, so
talking about LSU.
yeah, so hopefully these Bioware employees have a case.
Yeah,
That'd be cool. And
of
kind of
course.
on the same note, there's a Bungie employee who was fired. They were like a head HR, and they are suing the company for wrongful termination.
Hmm.
Essentially, what happened is there was an employee who the person who was laid off, the HR person, was told to look into because they were having performance issues,
Hmm.
and the employee who was having performance issues was the only person of color on the team.
Oof.
And so they were kind of saying, hey, they're saying that because I'm the only person of color. And then the HR employee went to leadership at Bungie and
Hmm.
said, hey, this might be something we want to look into. And then they were let go. So they're saying
Mm.
I was being let go because I brought up this potential issue.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is, I mean, I'm not there. If that's what happened, like, fuck that. Like,
Yeah,
but
that's
I'm not there. I don't know what happened. I will say there's been reports of Bungie having like uh this is not the first time we've heard Bungie might have like a racist
hmm
culture,
yeah.
and not particularly a good culture in general. So this
Hmm.
is kind of just more fueling the fire. I mean, we'll find out in court what happens, but that's not a
Yeah.
good look for Bungie.
No.
Um,
Um,
yeah.
and I remember last year, during the Juneteenth celebration, there was I believe like a skin or something, and it was named after like a gorilla or something of the like, and people were like, did they really like
Oops, sorry guys. That was a mug
did
that
they
just fell
really to
over.
celebrate a like very important holiday to African Americans, like make a reference to a monkey, which was like that was something that a lot of people kind of clowned on them for. But I think it's really interesting because something that a lot of people have been saying, especially like younger people, is HR isn't meant to protect the employees, it's meant to protect the company. And the weird thing is,
That's
this
what this person was
person,
doing.
exactly, they were like looking at something like, hey, this could be a very big issue for us later on, and they got fired. Which,
Yeah, it seems like a really bad idea on Bungie's part.
yeah, so
Trying to shake
it's
my
something that,
Mega Man juice quietly.
yeah, you enjoy that mega juice.
I
Uh,
like Mega Man juices.
yeah, the Mega Man juice. So
Tastes
yeah,
like a
it's something
robot.
that his robot tastes good.
This one does.
I mean, like well, as long as it tastes good, I mean, that's glad to hear it. But yeah, it's something. It's one of those things which it's kind of funny how the FTC Activision merger just finished, and now we have two new video game court cases coming up.
Yeah, I know. It's
Like,
like the video game industry is always about going bigger and better, and it's like, well,
hmm
how do we beat the Activision Blizzard trial or Microsoft? Oh, here's what we'll do. We'll have a bunch of people suing their former company.
hmm
But
We're
moving
doing
on.
the episodic releases now,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah. Two stories at once.
hmm
Um, Speaking of Bungie, Bungie was supposedly involved in Factions 2, that is The
hmm
Last of Us Factions 2, made by Naughty Dog.
hmm
And essentially, this next kind of news story goes this has been floating around for a while. Bungie, being experts in live service games with their very
hmm
popular Destiny 2,
hmm
which was part of the reason Sony kind of brought them on board and purchased them. They took a look at Factions 2 being developed by Naughty Dogs and basically said this game doesn't have like it was not a good live service game. There wasn't enough there
hmm
to kind of keep people coming back. Um,
hmm
which has kind of been spelling trouble for Factions 2 because they're not totally sure what to do with this.
hmm
So Naughty Dog has laid off layoff, I don't know if it's the right word. Canceled because they're all contractors. People are out of
hmm
work. It was like
Yeah.
25 people. I don't know what percentage that is of Naughty Dog, but it's again, this is kind of just more of the same. It's companies not knowing like what to do, chasing this live service trend, which is
hmm
not working out the way they wanted to,
hmm
and now normal employees are paying the price. I mean, I don't know why you'd put Naughty Dog, who's known for their multiplayer, on a live service game. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that the people who were affected are able to find work. It's probably really tough right now, and because they're contractors, they definitely didn't get any severance. Um,
hmm
yeah, it's that sucks.
hmm
More bad decisions. Hopefully, I mean, on the plus side, hopefully no more live service stuff is kind of in the
No.
pipeline. And but I mean, it's these
And
things repeat. It's cyclical, so there'll be a new trend that they'll throw a bunch of money at and then it won't work out and people will lose their jobs again. But
yeah, and I find it so weird because, like, Sony, as far as I can remember, they weren't really chasing the live service like trend.
they weren't, but they announced like couple like a year or so ago that they had like
hmm
12 games in development, like 12
hmm
live service games in development.
hmm
And again, that's why they bought Bungie, for their
Yeah,
expertise in that.
and that makes sense if like to start a game. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like Helldivers 2, that's going to be a live service game. I wouldn't be surprised for a game to start development, but for a game that's why it's so weird is that there are games like Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man, of course, that have like big single players that don't have any multiplayer live service components. So it's interesting that they wanted to tack it on to The Last of Us 2,
Yeah,
the game that
I
was like supposed to be their big like story game.
yeah, I always thought it was weird. I always thought like what happened was they wanted to make factions too
hmm
and
hmm
just include it on the game, and
Yeah.
then Sony wanted them to like make it bigger. I don't know if that's true. That's just like the
hmm
impression I got. So
hmm
I don't know. We'll see. Um, but yeah, so good luck to those affected. If you're listening to
hmm
this,
Yeah.
good luck.
hmm
That's all I can say. That's
Yeah.
getting laid off is
It's
that's
unfortunately
it's like one of my
it's a
biggest
rough
fears.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very rough year for game developers.
Yes, it's a rough year for lots of people.
Yeah.
And speaking of layoffs, Epic laid
Oh.
off 800 people, which is already bad, but as if they needed more bad news. They are being accused by the Hatoful Boyfriend developer Hatomoa
hmm
for unpaid royalties. So this one's a little confusing, but there's Epic bought Mediatonic, a developer called Mediatonic, and Mediatonic worked on the HD remake of Hatoful Boyfriend.
Mhm.
And since Epic acquired Mediatonic, they did not pay Hatomoa the royalties from this HD remaster, is what I
Mhm.
gather. And so Hatomoa came out and said this, and Epic said, "Huh, we'll look into it." So, uh, yeah, who knows if they'll have time after firing 800 people, but they're gonna try.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that it's going to be it's one of those things where it's like a lot of people don't like Epic because of them, like how they like buy the exclusivity rights to a lot of games, and then make them an Epic Store exclusive. So I think it's a lot of people are going to just be using this as a more like moral reason to avoid Epic now even more.
Yeah,
Like, oh, well, they're now screwing over developers, so I'm just going to keep using Steam.
yeah,
Which,
which they were gonna keep using Steam anyway.
oh, of
So who
course,
cares?
yeah.
Um, all right. Well, that is, I think, enough doom and gloom. There's
No.
definitely more bad news in the game industry, but I think between last week and this week, we've had enough. So this week, to not get caught off guard, I actually went and made sure I found a feel good story so that we did not have a repeat of last week where I was scrambling and just ended up digging up worse stories.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
yeah, it was bad. Um, so this week's feel good story is the Australian government pledges 12 million Australian dollars to the game industry over the next 4 years.
Yeah,
Uh,
keep in mind it is Australian dollars, not real dollars.
yeah, it's like monopoly money, but it's the thought that counts. No, so
Yeah.
essentially, they, I think it said the article I read was like they would give like 100,000 Australian dollars to pretty much anybody who asked, but it was
Mhm.
the idea is not like to fund these games, but it is to like get these games off the ground. So their
Mhm.
hope is that $12 million, you can divide it. That's a lot of money. You can divide that, get a project off the ground to get a pitch, and then get additional funding from a big publisher. So I think this is cool. I mean, the game industry is clearly hurting, and if the game industry can't get money from like venture capitalists and other forms of
Mhm.
investment, and if a government wants to step in and give some money, cool. If that
Yeah.
helps people kind of get their idea off the ground, if that helps people keep their jobs, then I think that's a good thing. So that's why it's our feel good story of the week.
Yeah. And I think that it's one of those things that of course having like a major game doing well that's from Australia, it can lift up other components of the Australian economy as well. Um, like kind of unrelated, but also kind of related. In Alan Wake 2, they announced like the songs in the game are, for the most part, all being done by Finnish artists, which of course Remedy is a Finnish
Okay,
company,
I'm gonna just
and
stop
so
you right there.
what?
This is our second feel good story of the week. This is
No,
so
well, no, this
unrelated.
is. I was going. No, I was bringing it back. You can't just interrupt me.
You
But
just wanted
so
to talk about Alan Wake.
no, well, yes, but also I was going to bring it back. But the thing that like kind of shows is that if you have such a successful project from a company, you can also use that to boost other companies or other um people from your country with like different expertise as well. So then you can start incorporating like popular Australian musicians as well and introduce their music to another audience. And then that way, it's like even though you're just funding games, you can start lifting up other things. You have a game set in Australia, you can start using Australian voice actors and the like.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah, no, yeah,
You
I had a
you
way to
got
tie
there.
it back
Yeah,
in.
but you you could have made that point without bringing up Alan Wake. You just before we full disclosure before we recorded. Yeah, I don't know. I read this story about Alan Wake. I don't know if you want to use that as the feel good story. Nah, we'll save it for next week or something if we can't get a feel good story during the feel good story. So yeah, Alan Wake.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah, I got nothing. I already
It
made
was
my
you did
argument.
it. It was a
I
stretch, but you got there.
I can guarantee you if I attended LSU for 2 more weeks, I probably could have came up with a better rebuttal.
You probably could have, because that was
Um,
it was fine. You got there.
yeah,
I can't be mad.
yeah.
Well, that's all the news. Actually, I mean, I should have grabbed a couple more stories. Our news typically takes a little bit longer, so I want to trim it down. But this week, I feel like because it was just depressing stuff, there wasn't really a whole lot we could say except for that sucks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I unless there's anything else that's on your mind, if you want to go into,
Oh. Yeah. So, I don't know if you noticed this, but Remedy announced in Alan Wake 2,
oh my
they
gosh,
released the chapter songs. Um,
okay,
no. Yeah. Let's go ahead and let's
get
jump
into
into
our
it.
game discussion. You ready?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep.
So today's game is Luigi's Mansion. We're talking about just like the original GameCube one. I might sprinkle in some stuff about three. Um, Noah, you might sprinkle in some stuff about two if you
Hmm.
want.
Yeah.
But we'll primarily be focusing on one just because that's the one we've both played. I've played
Hmm.
three. I haven't played two. Noah's played
Hmm.
two. He hasn't played three. But just kind of real quick, Noah, as per usual, spoiler free, light impressions. What do you like about the game? What do you not like about the game? Who would you recommend it to? Go. Okay. And we are back. I had to pause the podcast. So my fiance is, like I said, she's away becoming a flight attendant. And I got a text from her saying, "Hey, are you still recording the podcast? I need to call." And I said, "I am. Is everything okay?" And she said, "No." And so I got very worried. So I paused it uh, and I called her. And she was trying to get her Switch to connect to the hotel Wi-Fi. So
So,
and I was like,
so
I don't know how to help with this, but I was definitely not expecting this. I guess like somehow when she was talking with her friends there, they were like, "Oh yeah, I brought my Switch. Oh, I brought my Switch." So they were like, they're all trying to get on this hotel's Wi-Fi to play Splatoon.
yeah,
Uh, so
it's a pretty good prank.
yeah,
Good prank.
great prank. Gave me a heart attack and ruined this podcast.
It's
Um,
true. We're gonna have to cancel the
I
podcast
know.
after so
Two and
two
a
and a
half
half episodes.
episodes.
Well, we had a good run.
We had a
Um, sorry, G Fuel never got to sponsor you, but it
that's fine.
was
I'll just tell him I'm still doing it.
you're just doing the podcast unofficially.
I just
I'm not
I've
recording it, but I'm still
recorded it. I
doing the.
record it every day. I just don't upload it every day.
No, I'm
Uh
just going to I don't record the podcast. I just do it live.
yeah, exactly.
I just do it live in my room. So if anybody wants to buy tickets, you can.
Yeah.
Just sit
It's
on the couch while I talk to myself.
it's only 3 tickets per showing. 4 if you want to sit on somebody's lap. Anyway,
But you
so
get
as
to
you were
play with the dog.
yeah, you do have to play with the dog.
Mhm.
Anyway, before my fiance rudely interrupted us with
Yep.
her Splatoon props,
Mhm.
uh, you were saying what you like, don't like, and who you'd recommend Luigi's Mansion to.
Yeah. So I would say it is, in my opinion, the best spooky game of all time. Um, and I would recommend it to people that like spooky things. That's really it, and I'll elaborate further.
Okay,
Like,
yeah, I think this game is I think it's a good game. I um I kind of agree with you. It kind of follows in that same lineage as like Goosebumps and Scary
mhm,
Stories to Tell in the Dark, where
mhm,
it's spooky and it's a little scary
mhm.
for a younger one, but it's
Yeah,
definitely not like it's not like gonna
it's
traumatize a child.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but it's a fun game. If I had to give a complaint, and this is kind of more for the series in general, it's pretty simple. Um,
Mhm,
they do a couple of things in like three to mix it up with Luigi, but for
mhm,
the most part, those are simpler games, which is fine. They're mostly aimed at kids.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I'd recommend them to somebody who like has kids or just likes Mario, kind of wants to play something a little different because there isn't really anything like Luigi's Mansion. Um,
Yeah, I think it also, in my opinion, a perfect October game, just
Yeah,
because if you love playing horror games on October, it's a nice little change of pace.
it's different than like, if you kind of want to, if you're getting horrored out and you're
You're jumping from Resident
uh
Evil to
to
Silent Hill
yeah.
to Clock Tower to Dead Space. Change of pace.
Yeah, exactly. Something to play before you go to bed. And they're short games too, so you can fit them into your schedule pretty easy.
Hmm.
But yeah, so with that being said, let's just go into it. I can't believe they kill off Luigi at the end.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so no, I haven't played Luigi's Mansion 1 in a while.
Hmm.
I remember as a kid though, really liking it. Um, I still hear the baby crying like that. What? Uh,
I forgot about that until you mentioned it.
yeah, but yeah, I like we kind of said, I think the game does a really good job of like being freaky and creepy without being too scary for kids.
Hmm.
It is, I
Speak
think
for
though it might,
yourself.
yeah, I think it might actually be a little too scary for kids.
Hmm.
Um,
Speak for
but
me.
also, yeah. So my fiance's nephew is 5, and
Hmm.
I brought my Switch over once, and he was like, "Oh, you have Luigi's Mansion? Can I play it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." So I turned it on for him. He started playing it, and I continued talking to like the rest of like the family, the adults, the big
Yeah,
kids, even though I
yeah, the
I,
big
I
boys.
wanted to be playing Luigi's Mansion with him,
But
but
societal
I have,
standards forbid
yeah,
you.
that's exactly, which is like, oh god, yeah, that's like my own, yeah, that I could go on a rant about that. Like, I just want to play video games with these kids. I don't want to drink and talk about sports or whatever. But whatever, this is what I have to do. And at one point he comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, can you come over here?" And I'm like, "Yes."
Oh, thank
Um,
God.
and he's like, "Can you play this with me? Because I don't want to play it alone." And this was not like, I mean, we were at this kid's house and it was like the middle of the day. Granted, he's 5, so he's young, but I
Yeah,
mean, it's
yeah.
clearly scary enough for
Hmm.
a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's kind of normal. So it might be a little too freaky, but but he was fine playing it when I was like watching him and when I was
Hmm.
there. So I think that if you are somebody who has, younger kids, this is a game you could play with them. I think they'd
And
be able to get through it. But I definitely didn't do that. I played it
mhm.
alone, and I think I played it at night. And I was like, I was a coward as a kid, and I somehow played this game like alone at night, and I don't really remember getting scared. I may have played it a little bit with our sister, but I don't remember.
So so the funny thing that you mentioned that so it came out 2001, or North America, uh,
So
November
I would have
18th,
been 8.
2001. Yeah. So I was actually 4 or 5, and I remember the game actually scared me when I was that age. The way our, like, house at the time was set up, like, we had the big game room, and there's a window, like, on the opposite side of the TV that was, like, a big window, and I remember there's times where, like, I wanted to see the game, but because it was scary, so what I would do is I would stand in, like, the hallway and
Oh, I do
watch
remember
through the
that. You could see the
reflection of that.
reflection.
Yeah. So, I think that, yeah, it's, but that's the thing that, like, when you're that age, it's a scary game, but it is still a game that you're interested in it. It's a thing where it's like, I don't like watching it, but
they just
I do
they,
like watching it because it's interesting.
it's yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not traumatizing scary,
No.
but it's that same level of, talking it through with you,
Yeah.
I think they just nailed it. I think they
Yeah.
nailed, because it's it's scary as a kid, but it's
Yeah.
it's the same reason like teenagers might go see Saw or whatever, because it
Mhm.
is scary. They don't want to look, but they also want to look. And I
Yeah.
think that it kind of triggers that same thing, but it's toned down, and so kids can play it. They know
Yeah.
Luigi, like, he's a goofball.
Yeah.
And so I think that it kind of lends itself to a pretty good game for kids, especially
Mhm.
kids who might be interested in horror, which, because like, yeah, I mean, there's not really horror movie for kids. There's some Halloween
No.
stuff, like the,
No.
kind of Disney Channel stuff, but
Yeah.
even like Luigi's Mansion, I think there's not like horror games
Yeah.
really.
It's because people are afraid to make something too scary for kids.
Well, and it's
Um,
also different when you're controlling it.
yeah, that's as well. Um, but I think though that that really further cements the fact of how much they nailed it. Is you were saying like, yeah, it wasn't really that scary for me, but both me like a 4, 5 year old and like this 5 year old kid, played and was like, oh, this game is like scary. And so I think that the fact that if that's the age range they're going for, then it really nails it.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, yeah, when maybe you're 6 or 7 or something, you're like, okay, I will give this game another shot, and you're like, oh, this isn't that bad.
Yeah. And I think there's so I did play 3 when it came out, and I liked it, but it definitely was a little disappointing.
Hmm.
But I think there's enough there for adults to play. Like if you were playing with your kid, one thing these games have always done, I think, better than any other Mario game
Hmm.
is like like the character of Luigi.
Hmm.
Luigi in these games has like just more personality than like any character in any Mario game. Yeah,
Mario.
but even out like his facial animations are so good. Yeah, like what
Hmm.
you just did, which was really good.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
but even just like the yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
and Mario. Like I played that game as a kid, and I still just like I think about
Yeah.
that like almost daily. Like if I'm in like a dark hallway, I'll just go Mario. Like it's just little things like that. And obviously, like you could say, well, like, all he's doing is saying Mario. But the way he says it and just like the way it is in the context of the game,
Hmm.
like he's looking for his brother. Like
Hmm.
but he's freaked out. He's in a haunted
Yeah.
mansion and he's um yeah, I think that this game is like I'm almost disappointed that it didn't like set a standard for Mario games in terms of
Yeah.
characterization.
Hmm.
And hopefully, I mean, you know, with Wonder coming out,
Yeah.
Wonder seems to have a lot of those kind of like personality touches too,
Hmm.
just in terms of like the movement and the kind of graphics and things. So hopefully we start seeing more of that, especially after the movie where we have like a full blown Mario character
Yeah.
now
Hmm.
with a personality and Chris Pratt. Uh,
So
so,
cool.
but I mean, Luigi's Mansion was 22 years ago.
Yeah. And
And we're just now
didn't
getting kind of those personality touches.
yeah, no like firm characterization. Like I don't think it says anything in the game like besides like yes, no, and then the voice clips. Because this was the GameCube, not every GameCube game had fully voiced like
Yeah.
characters. But I think that in something kind of connected to that is the sound design in the game is
Yes.
so
Yeah.
good. Like I'm not really a big like sound design person, but like just talking about all the iconic sounds in this game is
Yeah,
just
the
like
baby
dang.
crying, Mario or Luigi humming, him calling out
Hmm.
Mario's name.
Yeah, and
Even
like the
Egad's little like
yeah,
his weird little like shatter thing.
and even like the vacuum sound. Like
Yeah, it's a
if
very
you hear a vacuum sound from the game, a lot of other people who haven't played would be like, "Oh, that's just a vacuum sound," but you can probably be like, "Oh, that's the Luigi's
that's
Mansion
the
vacuum
I
sound."
know that vacuum, and even like the little and the same with like the light, like when you shine the light and
Hmm.
it's like the thick, like
Yeah,
which is such a cool mechanic, and it was you know, you talk about Alan Wake. Luigi's Mansion is just Alan Wake Zero.
yeah, yeah.
Luigi's Mansion crawled so Alan Wake could run. Or I guess Luigi's Mansion crawled so that Alan Wake could walk, so that Alan Wake 2 could run.
Well,
Hopefully,
I was gonna say Luigi's Mansion crawled so that Alan Wake could trip, and let's see how Alan Wake 2 does.
yeah. Coming from the guy whose favorite game is Alan Wake.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think you're right. The sound design does
like,
nail it. I think so. I mean, sounds good, scares good.
mhm,
The gameplay is a little simple. I mean, but I think it's
mhm,
fun. You shine a flashlight at a ghost, and then you
mhm.
got to suck them up and kind of rotate the stick. And they have so much life, and the longer you suck them up, the it reduces their life. It's a little
Well, I think
simple.
well, I
Go
think
ahead.
that oh, sorry, yeah, so I think it's simple, but I think they realized that into a development, and that's why they also kinda turned it into a puzzle game as well,
Yeah, it
because
is
it's
kind of a
not just
puzzle game.
Yeah, the bosses aren't just shine your light, suck them in. They have like a gimmick where it's like you have to do something so that like when the ghost is caught off guard, you shine the light and then go like
Yeah,
vacuum him up. Like I remember the father you had to like wait until he yawned and then you could shine your light on him. Um and if I remember correctly, like the bodybuilder, you had to like drop the weight on him or something like that, and then you could
yeah,
shine your light.
something
So
like
stuff like
that.
that. Yeah, so
Yeah,
as you had to like think, okay, how do I get this ghost?
yeah, it's not enough. You're right. The bosses do just have like immunity to the flashlight.
Hmm.
So you've got to stun them first, usually using something.
Hmm.
And that carries on into three too. Three. So I beat one as a kid, and I don't
Hmm.
remember. I remember struggling with it like a little bit, and then I played it like a year after it came out, and I kind of
Hmm.
blazed through it.
Hmm.
Um, but I played three as an adult, and it was like some of those puzzles were kind of tricky.
Hmm.
I was also playing with stick drift, so I
Hmm.
think that like I was kind of fighting that the whole time, which might have hurt my enjoyment of it. But
Hmm.
a lot of like the levels were cool. Like there's like a level that's supposed to be like a Godzilla fight,
Oh, that's
where like
cool.
it takes place in like a movie scene. So like there's buildings that you kind of run around. So
Hmm.
they definitely. I can't fault these games for being if there's I mean we've already said quite a few things they're good at. They're very creative.
Yeah.
If nothing else, they're incredibly creative. Um, and they kind of two from what I heard is a little bit disappointing, but three
Hmm.
really goes out of its way too to also be just it's creative.
Yeah.
I got a little I wasn't always it wasn't the most fun game I've had on the Switch,
Hmm.
but it was always I was always interested to see kind of what the next theme was going to be,
Hmm.
which was enough to get me through the game. And to be clear, I don't like hate it. I didn't love it. Give it
Yeah.
like a probably like a 7 out of 10. Like it was fun,
Yeah.
and if somebody like it's a game I'd probably recommend to play during the month of October.
Hmm.
But if like if you're like this year, it'd be hard to recommend just because there's so many other games.
Hmm.
And if you're like an adult, then play Resident Evil 4 remake and Dead Space remake first,
Yeah. Um, and
or
yeah,
even
and that's
Luigi's
kind of
Mansion 1.
yeah, and that's kind of how I felt about Luigi's Mansion 2. It was interesting and it wasn't bad, but the atmosphere I felt like from 2 onwards, I feel like maybe they kind of were like, okay, maybe this game is a bit too scary, so let's
Too
tone back
spooky
on
for
that.
me.
And I felt like that really ended up hurting the game because now it's like it turned it from being spooky to like spooky themed. Um And that really hurt my enjoyment because I was like, yeah, like I really liked how spooky the game was. Like I thought that um the only game that I really know of that uses ghosts is the Fatal Frame series, which is a scary game. And so having this kind of like retro spooky type of like fun atmosphere, I thought was like really made it stood out, but the fact that they kind of got rid of that was like, oh, this isn't like it's not as like fun and unique as it once was.
Yeah, I'm mad that you brought up Fatal Frame because I knew there was a series I wanted to talk about, and it's Fatal Frame. But whatever, maybe I'll wait. I've only played the first one, but that's a
Yeah.
good spooky game. That's a game that's still pretty
It
spooky today.
is that a spooky game or or scary game?
That's a scary game. I think it's
Yeah,
still scary today, even
that
PS2
makes
janky
sense.
graphics and all. But whatever, we're talking about Luigi's
Yeah,
Mansion.
yeah, exactly.
We can talk
Yeah.
about Fatal Frame. I think two's the good Fatal Frame, so we'll
Hmm.
get to that.
Yep.
I'll try to play Fatal Frame 2 at some point and then talk about it. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, trying to think if there's anything else we didn't really cover. I mean, this is like a Nintendo game, so it's simple.
Hmm.
Sound design's great. Spooky
Hmm.
level is I think perfect for what it's going for.
Hmm.
Um, you know, little simple gameplay, but I think the game went out with a very specific set of goals, and
Hmm.
I think it executed them all very well.
Yeah, I
And
highly
it's a
agree.
game that it's not going to be for everyone, I don't think, but I
Mhm.
think that for what they were going for, it's it's for those people. So the tough question: do you think this makes it on the list?
I'm gonna be honest. when we first decided to talk about Luigi's Mansion, I was like, "Nah, probably not." But just going and talking about, like, everything that this game does right, like the sound design, the characterization, the atmosphere, and just the tone and everything, I think I'm gonna put it on the list personally.
I it's funny you said that because I agree 100%. Like, I had the exact same thought process where I was like, "There's no way Luigi's Mansion is getting on the list."
Yeah.
Like, I like it, not 100, but then thinking about it, I'm like, "Well, what are the flaws of the game?" I
Yeah.
guess it could maybe do some things better when it even though it's 21 years old. Like, as far as, like yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm at a loss.
Mhm.
Like, I don't I don't have a good reason to keep it off the list. I think it
Yeah.
is. I think it is on the list. Maybe it's not the most fun game,
I
but I think it's incredibly um like I said, it just executes all of its goals perfectly.
yeah.
It's like incredibly just competently made. It's such an original idea. It's such a fun like character. Um
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, and
I think I'm okay with it going on the list.
yeah,
I
and I feel like,
100% would not have thought it would get on the list.
yeah, and I feel like something else about it too is like you talked about characterization of Luigi. I feel like because this is kind of more toned down Mario game, that's why they were able to do it. And I think it really worked. I think that yeah, I mean, it's something now I wouldn't say it's not like the greatest game of all time.
Oh, no,
It
no, no, no,
doesn't
no, no,
really
no.
do anything
I think it'll be low, like
or
maybe like 90s.
high. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. High, low, depending on how you view it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe like thinking maybe like a 92-ish. What are you
Yeah,
thinking?
yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, we can always it's easier to kind of assign numbers now because we have so many
Yeah.
open spots, but we can always adjust as we start filling up the list.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm a little bummed because I kind of wanted to stick a game. I wanted to do an episode where we don't put a game on here because at some point people might just think, well, it doesn't matter. They just put every game they talk about on. So
Oh, I know one game that we're gonna. I think this
I think
month.
there's a couple. Yeah,
I think this month
I
there's going to
know.
be a couple games
Yeah,
that aren't gonna make it.
it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem putting Luigi on the list.
Mhm.
Another thing we didn't really talk about is the villain. They gave Luigi kind of his own villain, which
Mhm.
in King Boo, which is
Mhm.
like it's kind of cool because it does feel like Bowser is just like a Koopa on steroids, and King Boo is
Yeah.
kind of the same thing. Like he
Mhm.
is just a gigantic Boo with a crown.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
like him. He's fun.
and it's really cool too because it's like so this is the entire gameplay like gimmick of the game. You fight ghosts, and then it's like, oh, hey, by the way, bet you forgot there's an iconic Mario enemy who's a ghost, and
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what they did, King Boo.
Yep.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm bringing up the spreadsheet. I'm trying to where. Okay, sorry. I should have had this ready to go, but I didn't. That's on me.
It's
My
okay, it happens.
apologies. So
Like,
you said
and
93.
I'm thinking the guy like we'll do 93. I
I'll
said
do.
92, but I think
I'm
maybe
gonna do.
93.
I'm gonna do 94 because I personally think
Yeah.
95. So we'll
Yeah,
split the
I was
difference.
also kind of thinking like 95-ish as well. We can put it at 95. Let's just do 95.
Okay. Nope, that's fine.
Mhm.
All right. So we have our Okay, so Luigi's Mansion is on the list. Three
Mhm.
down, 97 to go. We got
All
Skyrim at
right.
40, Dead Space Remake at 83. Yeah, Dead Space
Mhm.
Remake got on the list.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
and Luigi's Mansion at 95. I will
All
say,
right.
Dead Space is another one I went in expecting it to not make the list, but
Mhm.
Zach is such a big fan of that game that
He
like
convinced you that
he
it was
he convinced me. Yeah, like I like it. I really like it. But my argument was, oh well, I don't know if Dead Space Remake is even in my top five, and how could a game not in my top five of the year be in my top 100 games of all time? But I think it just speaks to how insane this year is.
Oh god. Yeah, I mean, there's something that I think perfectly ties all this together. Something I read online was 2023 is a great year for games, awful year for game developers.
Yep.
That's
Yep. Yep.
really how it
Which
is.
is a shame because
Hmm.
you would hope that it not be. But
Yeah, I mean, it's always a shame when it's bad for developers, but
yeah, I mean, we need them to keep playing the games we like.
of
But
course.
um, all right. So Luigi's Mansion is on the list. Cool stuff.
Hmm.
Speaking of games of this year, what have you been playing, Noah?
The game I've been playing for the past month or so, Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I say it every time. Not a perfect game, a lot of flaws, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. Did you hear about the cat thing?
But no, what cat thing?
I just read an article about this, so I could get some of the specifics wrong. But basically,
Hmm.
when there's this specific cat in the game
Hmm.
that when the game came out, his fur didn't load properly, so he was
Hmm.
bald. So then they fixed it because they were like, "Oh, this cat's fur is bad." So people got mad because they're like, "No, we like the bald cat." So in the newest patch, they reverted it back.
That's funny.
Yeah,
Um, there is something that I've seen some people talk about, not a lot. Companions in the game are super horny.
yeah.
Um,
I heard about that. Like, I was like, because I've kind of heard about like a
yeah.
lot of like the romancing stuff, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." It's
Hmm.
like Mass Effect, but it seems like I hear about that a lot more, and it almost seems a little like edge lordy to me.
It's the thing about it is the
I haven't
thing
played
I
any of
really
Baldur's
hate.
Gate 3.
Yeah, the thing I really hate about it is it seems like nobody can become friends. Like
Oh,
that was the thing. Like, who is the most iconic Mass Effect party member?
Garrus.
Exactly.
Gare
And
Bear.
I don't think like I think a very small percentage of players romanced Garrus
Oh,
and
I think you'd
Baldur's
be
Gate.
surprised. I think that you and I didn't romance him,
If I'd
but
played as a femshep, I definitely would have.
you
But
can buy a Garrus body pillow.
I know I have it. Um. So um. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, there's a scene in it where I was doing a romantic scene with a character, and I guess I chose an option that I just wanted to be nice, but I guess he interpreted that as meaning like I
That
was
you're
being
trying to
flirty.
bang.
Yeah, so he kissed me, and so I went up to him, and I would have liked an option to be like, "Hey, like I appreciate it, but I'm flattered, but unfortunately, like and I'm just not into that." And it was something like the response to break up with him was like, "You need to stop what you're doing. We are comrades and nothing more."
Oh,
It's
you
just
can't let him
so
down easy.
no, it was the most brutal like response you can get. And there's another part where it was like there's another guy that he's like, "I'm so tired." Like he's like, "I've been fighting for so long. I'm so tired." And I gave him a hug just because it's like, this guy's been
He
through a
needed
lot,
it.
like yeah, and it's like, that was probably the romance option, wasn't it?
Oh,
Or that was
100%.
that it was
Yeah.
yeah, it was like, "Oh,
I feel
jeez."
like that's a really specific problem that game's gonna have because it is like such like a deep role playing experience that it's
Mhm.
like you think like, oh, I can do anything. This is what I should do to help out my
Yeah.
friend. But the game is still a game, and there's only so many options. So it's gonna be
Yeah.
like, you trying to fuck? Oh, I'll make sure that that happens. Here you go. And it's like, no, I literally just wanted to hug him.
Yeah, it's
It's
like,
like Baldur's
you're
Gate.
doing a
You can
lot,
be nice. Just because you're being nice doesn't mean you're flirting.
yeah,
This is
exactly, and that's
2023 Baldur's Gate.
exactly, and it's just like, come on, like, I like the cast, but it kind of feels like they're a divide where it's like, we're either lovers or nothing, and that's a shame.
Yeah, especially in a game that specific. That's a
Yeah.
bummer. Well,
Yeah, but
I'm
I
sorry
mean,
to hear
still a
that.
very good game. Just one complaint.
Yeah, that's pretty minor.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, so I've been playing a lot of I've been playing a couple of different things. So I did wrap up Armored Core on stream. I got all 3 endings. I
Nice.
love Armored Core so much that I bought G Fuel's collector box.
Oh,
So, well, I
what flavor
pre-ordered.
is it?
Jeez, it's strawberry passion fruit.
Is it just
Uh,
called Armored Core Strawberry Passion Fruit, or is it
no,
called
it's
like?
called like EB 105 or something. But it comes with a sweet stainless steel armored core shaker cup.
Oh man,
So, well,
awesome.
it comes out in November, so I'll probably have some by the
Would have
time you
been
come to visit.
would have been cool if it was pizza flavored.
No, it should have tasted like motor oil and
Man, but then it would have matched
bullets.
your mech if it was pizza flavored.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. I did make a pizza mech on my stream.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that game was great. I loved it. This is the last time I'll talk about it, I swear. But if you're listening to this and you haven't played Armored Core, go play Armored Core. It's really good. So since I
Okay, I
beat it,
am listening to this and I haven't played Armored Core, so
you
I guess I
can
will play it.
you can take my copy when you come home, and
Sounds
you give
good.
me my Resident Evil so I can play separate ways.
I will.
So since then, I've been trying to wrap up Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I'm in like the final dungeon. I'm I'm over the game, but I'm so close. I'm just trying to power through it. Game's long.
Hmm.
Game's so long. Um, but the thing I've been playing that I've been really enjoying is Street Fighter 6.
Ooh,
I'm a
okay.
total Street Fighter noob. Like I've played it here and there, but like I had no idea what to do. So I'm playing it. I'm mostly doing kind of a mix between World Tour and Ranked. World Tour, I'm kind of doing just to practice like inputs, and some of the side missions are pretty useful in just learning things that you might not know. Um, and then yeah, I'm doing rank just to see kind of how I stack up. So I started at rookie, which is the lowest rank, and I did rank up to iron. And I've definitely noticed like a difference just from the jump from rookie to iron. I'm still doing okay. I'm still slowly climbing, but it's definitely hard. I've just got to get more consistent on my inputs. My goal is to get to plat, which I
Hmm.
don't know if that's realistic.
I mean,
I'm starting from a much lower point than I expected.
it's one of those things where I'm not gonna say it's unrealistic. Um, it's just it is going to be hard.
I've got to wait
Um,
until like Super Street Fighter 6 comes out so that a bunch of noobs join, and then I can get into it because it's
that's
hard.
well, I feel like well, I can always coach you in a way. I'm not a good player, but I am platinum. Um,
I think that means you're a good player. I think if you got to
uh,
platinum, you're considered a good player.
yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those weird things where it's like online, where it's like when you're part of a community, it's like, are you a good player? Uh, I'm a pro. No. Sorry. Let me. Like, are you a good player? Are you a good player? Are you a pro player? No. Then no, you're not. Are you a good
Oh,
player? Are you a pro player? Yeah. Did you win Evo? No. Then no, you're not.
oh my
Are you a
god,
good
dude.
player? I don't know. Are you a pro player? Yeah, yeah. Did you win Evo? Yeah. What year? Um, like 3 years back. You might not be a good player due to the update. So, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like if you take a random person on the street, I could beat them, but there are people way better than me. So like
Well,
that.
so I looked up like the statistics, and if
Mhm.
you're in plat, you're in the top like 30 or something, like 30%. So
Mhm.
among people playing Street Fighter, you are in the top 30. I
Mhm.
think that that's pretty good. No, you are not professional, but you are better than 70%. You get 10 people playing Street Fighter, you can beat 7 of them.
That's pretty good.
I think that's pretty good. You're definitely above average, which means you're good. Um but yeah, so that's what I've been playing. I feel like I'm playing something else. Oh, I pretty much just stopped playing Starfield. I haven't played it since last week, and I still like to go back to it, but um I don't know if I'll get to it. I At this point I'd rather play Baldur's Gate.
Yeah,
Um just cuz everybody's talking about it and I'm just kind of like
it's
it sucks. I want to like it, but I don't.
it's depressing how just 2 weeks ago we put Skyrim in our top 100 games of all time, and then like 2 games after that you just stopped playing it because you got bored.
Yeah, and
Really,
like
it's a shame.
and it sucks too. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, my dog just broke her toy." A lot of people
Oh,
say like, "Oh, it gets better around the 12-hour mark," and I'm only at the 6-hour mark.
oh,
But it's just
jeez.
like it's just like I don't have any drive to play it. I don't really yeah, I'm just kind of over it. So I might give it a shot if things slow down, but I don't know when that's going to be because I got Spider Man 2 weeks from today, Mario 2 weeks from today. Alan Wake 3 weeks from today.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess December's slow. Then and then February's not. December
Yeah.
and January are a little slow.
Yep,
So,
and then come around that time, they're going to announce a lot of games for next year.
yep. Well, yeah, they already have. Like I said, February we've got Persona 3 Reload, Final Fantasy Rebirth,
Mhm.
and then in March we've got I think Princess Peach and something else. There's a lot. It's not slowing down. Plus, we'll probably get a Switch 2 announcement.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
My
wild. But oh well. My goal is to have Xenoblade wrapped up by next week, which I'm getting a plane tomorrow, so that's like 4 hours I can spend. Plus, probably
okay.
more just being at the airport. So we'll see. Hopefully, I
Yeah.
can. Hopefully, I can do that. All right. Well, I think that's a podcast. This was a little bit shorter one, but that's okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it is. I mean, to be honest, I don't think people would have wanted us to spend a bunch of time talking about. Oh, and also this studio was laying people
yeah.
off. So, yeah.
I'll post a link in all the studios who laid people off, and you can peruse it at your
Yeah.
leisure.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a really great time, really great read. Highly recommend. If you got another hour to kill, definitely recommend reading every single article about
If you're
all of
having
them.
too good of a day and you want a little dose of reality, I'll make sure to link that to the podcast episode description.
Yeah.
Um,
Great
all
way to
right.
end the podcast, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Well, we're not done yet. Noah, is there
No.
anything you want to plug?
Yeah, so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna plug this there's a store in Nagoya where it's super cool. They have a lot of like vintage Americans things and especially cowboy things. So if I ever want to cosplay as a cowboy, I know exactly where to go.
That is, I I don't know what to do with this information.
I could I think you know what to do with this information if you ever want to dress up as a cowboy in Japan.
That is like just most that is like the most specific sentence. That's a Mad Lib. In Nagoya, Japan, in Nagoya, Japan, there is a small shop by my apartment that sells a lot of vintage Western things, American things, including Western stuff. So if I want to cosplay as a cowboy, I can do that. Oh God, I killed him.
Oh man, oh god. Oh, that was a good. Oh, I haven't laughed like that in months.
Well, I'm glad. That's
Oh
yeah.
god.
I didn't even do anything. I just repeated your sentence back to you.
But I could just imagine, like, in place name, Hunger Japan, there is a, like, this type of a store, like a type of store, clothing store.
I mean, yeah, it's a Mad Lib. All right, I'm gonna start playing the outro.
Oh, alright, yep, go ahead.
Why are you not playing outro? Oh, it's because you're too quiet. Oh, okay. My bad, guys.
Mhm.
There we go. So next week I think we're gonna do Dead by Daylight. We're also going to play it Friday night before we record. It's going to be me, Noah, Zach from last episode, and then another buddy of mine, Mike. That's the plan. We'll see if that comes together, but that's what I'd like to do. I will most likely be streaming that on Twitch. You can find me on Smesty. You can also find our podcast episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, and Google Play. I plan on making a website at some point, and I'm going to put the episodes up there as well. Our intro and outro song are by Pecan Pie on Upbeat. And I think that's all the news I've got. So thanks again. We'll see you next week. Like and follow the show. That was the other thing. Like and follow the show if you liked it. And give us a rating so that people can find the show. And now we are actually gone because Noah has cowboy stuff to buy.
Yeehaw.